Hey! Welcome back to a new video for the channel. Before we start, don't forget to subscribe and like if you like this kind of content or share it, which would help me a lot. Now, let's get started. A strange and intense Saturday sprint race here in Qatar. Let's analyze it all because it's a historic one for the McLaren team, as well as for Australian driver Oscar Piastri. A memorable performance, marked by a tragic and suspenseful sprint race. Before qualifying, the tire brand Pirelli found that their tires have a fault in their structure caused by the new killer curbs of the Qatar circuit, which has forced them to make modifications to it, bringing forward the track limits so that these spikes are not touched by the drivers. And we will see that there are no consequences in tomorrow's race or rumored to have extra stops. Tonight, Pirelli will analyze the tires and make a decision. A circuit undoubtedly marked by controversy from the FIA by removing multiple qualifying times for tomorrow's race, as well as for today's sprint race. As well as the track limits and extreme tire degradation of the sprint race this weekend, giving the advantage to the teams who started on the medium tires, who had to wait patiently to overtake with ease in the closing laps of the circuit. This has provided plenty of choice, touches and controversy in all the best sprint races, and well with surprises as we have a new winner. Oscar Piastri making his debut by taking his first win, along with third place for Lando Norris. Piastri has been playing a good role within McLaren, surprising all the fans and fulfilling the team's expectations. And what this guy has been doing is really to be applauded, in his first season scoring so many points and contributing to the team, surprising even the reigning Formula 1 champion, Max Verstappen. Determining the race with a lot of experience, running at a supposed disadvantage. However, he maintained his position throughout the race by overtaking the Mercedes drivers early on and even overtaking his own teammate. Despite several safety cars that gave hope to Russell, Sainz, and even Leclerc, who were fighting for pole early on, and despite also having Verstappen on the prowl, he never dropped off the pace, maintaining communication and a strategy that looked simple to execute visually. Simply magnificent. The Mkel 60 on a favorable circuit shows what it is currently capable of, and it flies in the fast corners. It is still not the most complete, with some weaknesses, being the most complete the RB19, but in these points that shows in this circuit of Qatar is the car to beat. Mostly made up of these corners so tight and high speed, make him gain enough speed that allow him to put pressure on Red Bull. Lando Norris was again a little out of line for the second day in a row, a mistake in the last corner of qualifying, when Piastri snatched the lead due to a bad start by Norris. The way he drove through the first few corners, he lost a few positions, but then regained them, limiting him to third place. Although he could have achieved a better result, he made good overtakes in which he left behind the two Ferraris, as well as Russell. But he had a stumble at the end that limited him a lot, avoiding him to get or climb to better positions. We cannot reproach him, but those mistakes are decisive and much more in a race and high performance, as it is in this circuit of Qatar. Piastri is gradually climbing up the table to Norris, and this weekend has undoubtedly been the most competitive from McLaren. Whatever the strategy, what a duo Norris and Australian driver Oscar Piastri. In this case, the most inexperienced driver, who is Piastri, so far not dazzle what may be the end of the season, because we know that McLaren has certainly returned and puts pressure on Red Bull. Despite having a team that continues to advance today, the great protagonist has been the three-time champion Max Verstappen, and there are no normal celebrations for the Dutch driver. A little anticlimactic celebration, but whatever. The thing is to get it, and is that it has been the driver in best form throughout the season, setting records in laps and getting victory after victory in the various circuits around the world, no doubt deserved. Unfortunately today, he had to settle for second place in a qualifying, where he missed his first attempt, and a bad start condemned him to lose a gap that in the end was not easy to recover. Piastri held the position and planted the car in an impressive way. Too much opposition, but the goal for Verstappen is achieved. No doubt he wants to set a new record, so he will go out to win tomorrow's race. In the opposite case to Checo, who had a very difficult start to the race, despite finding a better feeling. He couldn't make it happen on the last lap of Q3, which fell short. He had to make a comeback, and that involves dangers, especially at this circuit, putting the medium tires on. A strategy in which the soft tires would wear out, and he could take advantage of this to overtake them without any problems. He was losing positions at the beginning of the race, but quickly recovering them. Showing a lot of strength in a RB19 finally predictable for the Mexican driver, where he showed conformity and ease to drive it. But to go out behind and go up carries some risks that can limit the final result, and that in this occasion, he had to suffer. Ocon and Hülkenberg were battling. Checo took the opportunity to go around the outside to pass them without any problems. But Ocon, as if he was the only driver on the track, closed into the corner and took Checo with him, where Hülkenberg remained in the middle receiving damage to the left side wing of the car, with Hülkenberg having no alternative to escape by being between the two cars, this being the direct fault of the French driver. The Red Bull car was extremely damaged, which hopefully will not create consequences for the future. In the night, we'll have to analyze the Honda men to see what improvements they make for the RB19 car. The positive part that can be highlighted to Checo is the pace he took, which probably will be very helpful in tomorrow, long and difficult race, with many limits traced and with much wear on the tires. Checo's ability that we already know that he is extremely good at keeping the tires during the race. But what a pity that his classifications limit so much the strength he wants to show at 100%. Mercedes, for their part, had a very different Saturday for their drivers, Russell and Hamilton. But thanks to the ideal strategy for the 7-times world champion, they managed a comeback from the 12th place that had problems in the last attempt of Q2 to converge and add a bad 4th and 5th in which Russell was placed on soft tires. This made Hamilton could attack at the end of the race, starting from behind with great aggressiveness and finding on the way the collision that took place between the drivers Ocon, Hülkenberg, and Perez. And Russell, with the same aggressiveness as at the start, took advantage of them very well, gaining the lead temporarily, which eventually ended due to the premature wear of the soft tires on the car. Too early, the team's drivers, the third and most competitive team in the standings at the moment, both drivers scored a strong result, ahead of the Ferraris, and are preparing for tomorrow, because all teams have a chance to get in front of Red Bull, a team that is not very favorable to this track with such conditions. They are preparing for tomorrow because all teams have a chance to get in front of Red Bull, a team that the car does not favor too much this circuit with such conditions. So tonight will be analyze the different ways to get this coveted pole position by Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren, and how can not miss the Red Bull. The threats increase as the Grands Prix go by and we approach the end of the season. Talking about Ferrari, Sainz's heroic race recovering from his disappointing qualifying yesterday, finishing ahead of Leclerc in today's race, much more stable than his teammate, and having to compete with the batteries of his car that generated complications for him today, added to the gusts of wind that experienced the car and the soft tires that disappeared that ended up complicating the situation a lot, but they took advantage at the beginning to compete for the top positions. Unfortunately, they could not hold by the mechanical problems they had to manage. Even so, they have given the feeling of being somewhat weak the endurance of the SF23 tires. It seemed to be a step behind Mercedes and Russell that we can compare. Also with Leclerc, whose aggressiveness led him to have his times deleted by the FIA, this overdriving led to problems during the circuit, where on 4 occasions he overstepped the track limits, which resulted in him incurring a 5-second penalty, dropping from 7th to 12th. Ferrari this weekend, very unstable in general. Surprisingly, the Williams team, Alexander Albon, is one of the drivers of the day with a spectacular comeback from 17th to 7th position, thanks to a great strategy of Williams to choose the medium tires. An exceptional start by the Thai driver, enduring those first laps of suffering, and then taking out the fury that was contained, and those 2 frustrating qualifying where a lap was not at all comfortable because of the gusts of wind. But at the end of the race, they ended up showing great determination to score points for the team. Very strong Alex Albon, and very fast FW45. Not only in lap time, but also in top speed that made him gain a lot of points. The Williams team was very skillful in mounting those tires at the start, to wait for the tires to warm up, and then gradually gain some points at the end of the race. Logan Sargent disappointed again when he lost control of the car in the first laps. The worst thing is that he has already made too many mistakes within the team, and without contributing points to the team, compared to the great performance of his teammate. This has left him in the shadow of Albon, and he has no reason to continue in this way. Logan Sargent has to score points and more when they continue to compete for points in a decisive way. In Aston Martin, Alonso failed in the only attempt he had in Q3, going for a 5th or 6th position. But outside the track limits, this left him out of the competition. He started on the soft tires where he was asked to fight in the early laps to get a good position quickly, but later he fell prey to the drivers on the medium tires. Finally, he took advantage of the collision between drivers Hülkenberg, Ocon, and Checo, which secured him an 8th place. The Aston Martin car has been showing flaws of late that the Asturian driver is trying to hide, but the low downforce setup didn't help in today's sprint, and certainly shouldn't help in tomorrow's race either, in the long run with the tire management. But thanks to his qualifying, he will start 4th, and hopefully he will contribute in the moments to hold on and take some points for his team. Today has left us eager to see what will happen tomorrow, so leave your like and comment for future videos of this content and subscribe. See you tomorrow.